The humans lived their lives, oblivious to the grand chessboard of the galaxy. The Xelric Empire, a vast and ancient power, had claimed dominion over countless star systems. Their technology was unrivaled, their war fleets invincible. To the Xelric, and to many other species, Earth was nothing more than a small, distant planet, a footnote in the grand history of the galaxy. Humanity's attempts to reach beyond their own world were met with indifference, their first steps into space viewed as nothing more than a passing curiosity. Even as humans developed their own technology, advancements in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and genetic engineering, none of these innovations were seen as a threat. To the galaxy's other inhabitants, humans were like ants, scurrying about, unaware of the dangers lurking beyond the stars. But a quiet revolution was taking place on Earth, in secret labs beneath the surface, hidden deep within human military facilities. A select few knew that things were changing. A team of scientists had stumbled upon something incredible, an energy source that defied all known laws of physics. It wasn't just another power source, it was a weapon, something beyond imagination, something the galaxy had never seen before. The idea was simple but terrifying. A single pulse, one shot, capable of wiping out entire fleets with the flick of a switch. At first, the project was seen as a last resort, a defense mechanism for Earth, in case the larger galactic powers ever took notice of their insignificant planet. There was no intention of using it unless absolutely necessary. Yet the team working on it had no illusions about the power they were creating. They knew that if the galaxy ever discovered what humanity had, the rules would change forever. Earth could go from being a forgotten world to the most feared place in the universe in an instant. And then the Xelric arrived. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. The humans had heard rumors, disconnected reports of strange ships appearing on the outer edges of their solar system. Some dismissed it as paranoia, others as an elaborate hoax. But as the Xelric warships began to emerge from the depths of space, their massive, foreboding silhouettes casting shadows over the human colonies, there was no denying the threat anymore. The first wave of the Xelric was overwhelming. They came with the kind of force only a few species in the galaxy could muster. Their ships were sleek, almost organic in their design, powered by technologies that humans could barely comprehend. The Xelric had already conquered worlds in their path, wiping out any resistance with cold efficiency. No one expected them to encounter any difficulty with Earth. The humans were too weak, too small, too insignificant to pose a threat. But as the invasion began, something unexpected happened. The human defenses, though rudimentary compared to the might of the Xelric, fought back in a way the invaders never anticipated. The human ships, small and outdated, darted through the black void, using tactics born of desperation. It wasn't a battle they could win in terms of sheer force, but they fought with something else: their determination, their cunning, and their relentless will to survive. Despite their technology falling short in every category compared to the Xelric, the humans adapted. They began employing unconventional strategies, disrupting the Xelric's carefully laid plans with guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and feints. For every ship the humans lost, they took down 2 more of the invaders. The Xelric started to feel the sting of an enemy they hadn't anticipated, one that refused to bow, one that was willing to sacrifice everything to protect their home. It was a moment of realization. The humans were no longer the weak species the galaxy had written off. Something had changed. Something deep inside them had awakened. And the Xelric would soon learn that underestimating humanity was the greatest mistake they would ever make. The Xelric fleet, massive and formidable, had already begun its attack on Earth's outer defenses. Human ships, though outmatched in size and firepower, swarmed in a desperate counterattack, using every trick in the book. The humans' fighter jets zipped across the stars like swarming insects, darting between the hulking warships of the Xelric. But it was clear, no matter how brave they were, the humans couldn't win on numbers alone. The Acceleric's weapons could obliterate entire fleets with a single strike. This wasn't a war, it was an execution. But then, something changed. A human ship, the HMS Vanguard, led by Captain Thomas Harrow, made a bold move. Harrow, a veteran of Earth's small but experienced military force, had never been one to back down from a fight. His ship, though not equipped with the same technology as the invaders, was nimble, faster than most, and capable of outrunning anything the Acceleric threw at it. But Harrow had a plan. He led the Vanguard on a reckless path into the heart of the Acceleric formation, deliberately drawing the attention of their largest warship, the Varrock. The Varrock, bristling with deadly weapons, locked its sights on the human vessel, targeting it with a barrage of devastating energy blasts. Just as it seemed the Vanguard would be incinerated in seconds, Harrow executed a maneuver so bold, so unexpected, that even the Acceleric fleet commander was taken aback. With a series of sharp turns and unpredictable jumps, Harrow led the Vanguard through the dense mass of enemy ships, weaving between them like a leaf caught in a storm. The Varrock fired again and again, missing every shot, its own momentum working against it. In that moment, something extraordinary happened. As the Varrock attempted another blast, Harrow's ship, moving with reckless precision, pulled off a risky move. The Vanguard flew directly between two Acceleric ships, causing them to fire on one another. A massive explosion erupted, sending debris and crippled ships spiraling into space. It was an act of sheer human ingenuity, improvised and unpredictable. The Acceleric fleet hadn't anticipated a species that fought with such cunning, without hesitation or fear. The humans weren't going to win by strength alone, but by pushing their enemies into mistakes. It wasn't just strategy. It was a refusal to lose, to be annihilated. For the first time, the Acceleric were forced to reconsider their approach. These humans, these weaklings, weren't so easily crushed. Captain Harrow's audacity didn't stop there. As he led the Vanguard back toward Earth, he relayed a command to the planet's military. "Prepare the new prototype," he ordered, his voice firm despite the chaos surrounding him. "We're going to need it, and we need it now." On Earth, in secret facilities scattered across the globe, the hum of machinery echoed as teams scrambled to finalize the weapon they had spent years perfecting. It had been designed for a moment like this, one in which the odds seemed insurmountable and humanity's very survival depended on a breakthrough. The prototype was an experimental weapon, one kept hidden from the prying eyes of the galaxy. It had only been tested in small-scale trials, but if the humans had any chance at all, now was the time to reveal it. Back in the midst of the battle, Harrow's maneuver had bought Earth's military just enough time to activate their secret weapon. As the Acceleric fleet regrouped, thinking they had the advantage, they were unaware of the storm that was about to hit. Human ingenuity, raw determination, and one last gamble were about to turn the tide. The battle raged on in the cold void of space, with the Acceleric fleet moving in for the kill. They were relentless, methodical, and confident that humanity's pathetic resistance would soon crumble under their superior might. Yet, as the Vanguard and a handful of other human ships darted in and out of their formation, the Acceleric fleet commander, Karen, began to feel a growing unease. There was something different about this conflict. The humans were fighting with a fury and creativity he hadn't expected. And despite their overwhelming technological disadvantage, they were making him work for every victory. But Karen had no idea that the real surprise was still waiting to be unleashed. On Earth, the teams working on the secret weapon had completed their final adjustments. It had taken years to perfect, but the time for testing was over. Now, as humanity's fate hung in the balance, the weapon was ready for deployment. Deep in the heart of the most classified military base on Earth, a massive energy array powered up, sending a deep hum reverberating through the ground. The air around it crackled with a strange, almost unnatural energy. The weapon, known only to a select few as Project Apophis, was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The prototype, designed by Earth's top scientists, harnessed a form of energy so dense and potent that it could tear apart entire fleets with a single burst. Unlike conventional weapons, which relied on concentrated firepower or kinetic force, Project Apophis manipulated the very fabric of space-time itself. It worked by creating a shockwave of energy that rippled across the battlefield, bypassing conventional shields and defenses. In its wake, it left nothing but the remnants of destroyed ships and shattered hulls. Back in the heat of the battle, Harrow knew that Celeric would soon be upon him. His ship, the Vanguard, had sustained heavy damage, and it was only a matter of time before it was overwhelmed. He glanced at his tactical screen, watching as the Celeric vessels closed in. Their immense size and firepower made them formidable opponents, and Harrow's remaining ships were barely enough to hold them off. But then, just as the situation seemed hopeless, he received a message from Earth Command. "Activate Project Apophis. It's time." Harrow's heart raced as he punched in the coordinates. This was it, the moment he'd been hoping for. He had no idea if the weapon would work, or if it could even handle the full scale of the Celeric fleet, but it was their only shot. He transmitted the activation code. At the same time, deep beneath the surface of Earth, the massive energy array surged with power. The ground trembled as the weapon powered up, sending a pulse of energy that shot toward the heart of space itself, directly toward the battlefield. Harrow watched in disbelief as the space around the Celeric fleet seemed to bend. The weapon, still in its infancy and untested on such a grand scale, created a distortion in the fabric of reality, pulling at the edges of space. For a moment, everything went silent. The background noise of the battle, the hum of engines, the crackle of communications, everything vanished. And then, the burst of energy hit. It was instantaneous. The energy wave slammed into the Celeric fleet with such force that it tore through their shields as if they were nothing more than paper. Massive warships, once symbols of unmatched power, crumpled like fragile toys, their hulls disintegrating under the shockwave. The Varrock, flagship of the fleet, seemed to implode upon itself, its structure folding inward in an impossible twist, as if space itself had bent around it. In a split second, the entire Celeric fleet was reduced to a field of debris, scattered across the void like broken fragments of a shattered dream. The human ships, including Harrow's Vanguard, were untouched by the wave, having been far enough from the epicenter to avoid its destructive force. The battlefield, once a chaotic mess of flashing lights and destruction, had gone eerily still. The Celeric, once a proud and unstoppable force, were gone. Harrow sat in stunned silence as his ship drifted among the wreckage, a small, insignificant speck in a galaxy that had just witnessed something unimaginable. He had expected some damage, some resistance, but nothing like this. The weapon had worked. It had worked. For a moment, all that remained was the haunting silence of the aftermath. But soon, the magnitude of what had just occurred began to sink in. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible. A species that was supposed to be a footnote in history had just erased an entire fleet of one of the most powerful civilizations in existence. The universe would never be the same again. The silence after the devastation was almost deafening. For a few moments, it seemed as if time itself had frozen. The Celeric fleet, once a dominant force that had ravaged worlds, had been wiped out in an instant. The remnants of their massive warships floated aimlessly, scattered across space like the ruins of an ancient civilization. Nothing remained but debris, twisted metal, and the black emptiness of space. Captain Harrow sat motionless in the cockpit of the Vanguard, staring at the remains of the fleet. His heart was still racing from the battle, but he couldn't process what had just happened. It wasn't just a victory. It was a complete and total annihilation of the Celeric threat. One pulse, and an empire was gone. Message from Earth Command, Captain. A voice crackled through the comms, breaking the stunned silence. Put it through, Harrow replied, his voice low and steady despite the chaos in his mind. The face of General Meredith Anderson appeared on the screen. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes shone with a mix of disbelief and triumph. "We did it," she said simply, as if the destruction of an entire fleet was just another routine mission. "You've given humanity the impossible. The Acceleric will not threaten us again." Harrow nodded, though he couldn't shake the feeling that something much larger was at play. They'd just sent a message to the galaxy, one that couldn't be ignored. Earth wasn't just a small, insignificant planet anymore. They had the power to change the balance of the entire galaxy. "We've got to move fast, General," Harrow said, his mind already racing through the possibilities. "The galaxy won't forget what happened here, and we can't let our guard down. The Acceleric might be gone, but there are others out there. And if they think we're weak—" "We know," Captain Anderson cut him off. "Earth Command is already preparing for the next phase. The weapon's success has given us a new role in galactic affairs. We've already received inquiries from multiple species, some of them not exactly friendly. Our priority now is to ensure we have allies and that we're prepared for whatever comes next." As the communication ended, Harrow's thoughts turned inward. He had known that the Vanguard and the rest of Earth's ships had just barely managed to survive the onslaught. But now, with the Acceleric crushed, the true scope of what had just occurred began to unfold. The galaxy, this vast, ancient collection of worlds, had just learned a crucial lesson. The humans were no longer helpless. They had shown the galaxy that they were capable of more than anyone had imagined. And that power, that unthinkable weapon, would soon have repercussions beyond what anyone could predict. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. There was no denying it anymore. Humanity had just changed the course of history. Every major galactic power, from the fierce military forces of the Draxians to the peaceful, trade-focused Auravari, took notice. Some sent diplomats, eager to understand what had just transpired and to secure an alliance. Others, less friendly, began to stir, wondering how a species so young could wield such a weapon. Messages of congratulations from former enemies were mixed with veiled threats. Some spoke of peace, eager to negotiate with Earth and ensure a place within their newfound power. Others, though, were more calculating. They saw humanity's sudden rise as a potential threat to their own dominance. And then there were the whispers, the rumors that spread like wildfire through the darkest corners of the galaxy. Some said that Earth's weapon was just the beginning, that the humans had more secrets hidden away, waiting to be unleashed. Others speculated that Earth had awakened an ancient power, one that even the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy feared. No one knew exactly what humanity would do next, but one thing was clear: the galaxy was no longer at peace, and the humans, once dismissed as insignificant, had just proven they could tip the scales in their favor. Captain Harrow watched as the communication channels began lighting up with more and more inquiries from distant systems. Earth had become a new center of attention, and the eyes of the galaxy were upon them. They would have to tread carefully, choosing their alliances wisely, but they would no longer be invisible. Humanity had earned its place at the table, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. The shockwaves of what had happened were only just beginning to spread. And as the dust settled, Harrow knew one thing for certain: this was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen the power of humanity, but what would they do with it? Would they continue to defend themselves, or would they become the power that reshaped the stars? The future was now in their hands. As the days passed, Earth found itself at the center of a galaxy that had once ignored it. Diplomats from every corner of the stars arrived in human space, each with their own agenda, but all of them carrying the same message: humanity had something they wanted. The mysterious weapon, Project Apophis, had made Earth the most powerful planet in the galaxy overnight, and no one was sure what to make of it. Among the first to arrive were the Draxians, a species known for their ruthless military might and their vast empire that spanned several sectors. Their ships, sleek and ominous, docked at Earth's orbital stations, their weapons hidden but ever present. The Draxian delegation, led by Lord Varkos, was as intimidating as their reputation. Varkos was a towering figure, clad in dark, jagged armor, his voice cold and commanding. "We came," Varkos said when he met with Earth Command, "to discuss terms. We know the power you wield now, and we would be foolish to think you would share it freely. But you must understand, Earth, that the galaxy is not a place where such power remains unchecked." The humans, still adjusting to their new role, were cautious. General Anderson, sitting across from the Draxian Lord, met his gaze with equal parts resolve and uncertainty. She knew the galaxy's power players would test humanity's limits, but she hadn't expected the Draxians to act so quickly. "We didn't seek to disrupt the balance of power," General Anderson replied, her voice steady. "We simply acted to defend our world from an overwhelming invasion. We're not looking for war." Varkos smirked, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of interest and calculation. "The galaxy does not care about your defense. Strength is the only language spoken here, and you now speak it fluently. You have something everyone wants, something everyone needs. Your weapon is a key, Earth, and I intend to claim it." The conversation was tense, and as it drew to a close, it was clear that the Draxians weren't just interested in diplomacy. They had come to negotiate, and to intimidate. Their message was clear. Humanity had become a player in a game far bigger than itself, and it had better be ready to fight for its survival. As the Draxian ship departed Earth's orbit, their shadow lingered, a reminder that humanity was no longer just a world to be ignored. It was a world to be reckoned with. Not long after, representatives from the Orrevari arrived, a peaceful species known for their mercantile prowess and their vast trade networks. Their approach was different, more measured, more polite. The Orrevari believed in the power of negotiation and persuasion, and they knew that a strong alliance with Earth could open up new economic opportunities. Their delegation, led by Ambassador Sarah, was eager to discuss cooperation. "We do not come to threaten, but to offer partnership," Ambassador Sarah said during their meeting. "We have no interest in conflict. We believe your weapon can benefit all of us, not just Earth." Anderson listened closely as the Orrevari detailed trade deals, technology sharing, and even the possibility of using humanity's weapon as a deterrent for galactic peace. They wanted a cooperative relationship, one built on mutual benefit rather than fear. "We're open to the idea of peace," Anderson replied cautiously. "But trust must be earned. If we're to be allies, we need to know who we're dealing with." The Orrevari's proposal seemed reasonable, but there was a nagging doubt in Anderson's mind. She knew that even the most peaceful species could harbor ulterior motives, especially when the stakes were as high as they were now. The galaxy had seen humanity's potential, and now it was a matter of whether Earth could navigate the treacherous waters of galactic politics without being consumed by them. Meanwhile, a more troubling presence lingered in the dark corners of space. The Seraphis, a shadowy empire known for its secretive nature and unparalleled espionage skills. They were an enigma, a species that operated from the shadows, rarely seen but always felt. Rumors had already begun to circulate that the Seraphis were aware of Project Apophis and were making their own moves to acquire it. The Seraphis' involvement could spell disaster, unlike the Draxians, who played the game with force, and the Orrevari, who sought commerce. The Seraphis were masters of manipulation and subterfuge. Their methods were insidious, and their objectives unclear. Earth could never trust them, not without a significant amount of risk. With these powerful forces closing in on Earth, General Anderson knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had changed, and humanity's role in it was still up for grabs. The question was no longer if Earth would survive. It was how humanity would position itself in the galaxy's future. The stakes were higher than ever, and a delicate balance needed to be struck. Earth was no longer simply a world on the fringes of galactic affairs. It had just become the most valuable prize in the universe. The days following the Draxian and Orrevari visits saw Earth thrust into an unprecedented whirlwind of diplomacy and tension. Earth's newfound power had drawn the attention of every major galactic faction, each with their own intentions, both open and veiled. But with each diplomatic conversation, it became increasingly clear. The galaxy would not allow humanity to remain neutral for long. The price of wielding such power was already becoming apparent. General Meredith Anderson stood in the command center of Earth's orbital station, staring out at the stars. The calm expanse of space, once so vast and distant, now felt suffocating. Humanity had changed everything in a heartbeat, and the galaxy wasn't going to sit idly by. She glanced at the display screen, showing the various incoming communications and offers from the alien powers vying for Earth's allegiance. She turned to her trusted aide, Colonel Adrian Lee. "What's the latest on the Draxians?" she asked, her voice filled with a weary resolve. Lee's face tightened as he read through the data. "They're already mobilizing. A fleet is en route to our system. Their intentions are unclear, but we have to assume they're not here to negotiate anymore. They're preparing for something. Whether it's peace or something more sinister, we can't be sure." "And the Orrevari?" Anderson pressed, her hand tightening on the edge of the console. "They've been more cautious, but they're offering us trade deals and technology sharing," Lee replied. "It seems genuine, but we both know how they operate. They're not known for altruism." "And what about the Seraphis?" Anderson's voice dropped to a near whisper, her concern evident. "Nothing concrete yet," Lee said, leaning forward. "But we're detecting strange activity along the edges of known space. Their ships are elusive, almost ghost-like, but there have been sightings. If the Seraphis are moving, they're being careful." Anderson nodded, her mind racing. Earth was caught in a tightening web, and every faction had its eyes set on the most valuable asset in the galaxy, humanity's weapon. It was becoming more apparent that Earth's survival wasn't going to be determined by diplomacy alone. The galaxy had seen the power of Project Apophis, and now it wanted to control it or destroy it. As if to punctuate her thoughts, a message came through from the Orrevari. This time, however, it wasn't a trade proposal. It was an invitation to a summit, a diplomatic meeting with representatives from multiple factions. The message was clear. We must discuss the future of Earth's place in the galaxy. The balance must be maintained. Anderson's heart skipped a beat. The idea of such a meeting was both an opportunity and a threat. She knew that Earth could no longer remain in the shadows. It had to decide whether to align itself with a faction or risk becoming a target for everyone. At the summit, Earth's representatives would meet with the Draxians, the Orrevari, and even more factions. The galaxy's most powerful entities, all in one place, all eager to shape the future. The weight of this responsibility fell squarely on Earth's shoulders. But the problem was that Earth had no true allies, not yet. The Draxians were a military powerhouse, but their history of brutality made them an unreliable partner. The Orrevari, though diplomatic, had a business-first mentality that could lead them to betray humanity if it served their interests. And the Seraphis. They were a complete unknown, a shadowy force that moved in the background, watching, waiting. They had never been known to make an overt move, but their history suggested that any interference from them would be far more dangerous than any direct confrontation. As Anderson prepared for the summit, she was reminded of the true cost of power. It wasn't just about wielding a weapon. It was about navigating a galaxy that had no room for weakness. It was about maintaining a balance of power that was constantly shifting, always threatening to topple. Humanity had the upper hand for now, but how long could they keep it? The summit was scheduled to take place at a neutral station in the Outer Rim, a location far from Earth's borders, but central enough to accommodate representatives from every faction. Tensions would run high, and the political maneuvering would be intense. The future of Earth hung in the balance, and one misstep could mean disaster. But Anderson had no choice but to move forward. Earth's position was precarious, and it was becoming increasingly clear that there was no turning back. No matter the outcome of the summit, the galaxy would be forever changed. Humanity had ascended to the stage of galactic politics, and now the question was whether they could hold their ground, or if they would be swept away in the tide of forces far beyond their control. The day of the summit arrived. Earth's representatives, led by General Meredith Anderson, arrived at the neutral station known as Chiros Prime. Located in the outer rim, it was the perfect location for this high-stakes meeting, far from Earth's borders, but situated strategically in the heart of a region frequented by multiple galactic factions. The station itself was a sprawling complex of sleek corridors, meeting halls, and observation decks, a silent witness to the political games of the galaxy's powerhouses. But even here, the air was thick with tension. General Anderson stood at the head of her delegation, her team of diplomats and military officers lined up behind her. The Draxians had already arrived, their imposing presence marked by the dark, jagged ships docked in the station's lower bays. The Orcs, sleek and composed, had arrived next, their elegant ships floating silently nearby. The Seraphis, true to form, had not been seen, but their presence was felt in the coldness that hung over the station, a reminder that their shadowy influence was never far behind. As the representatives gathered in the central hall, the stark contrast between the factions was apparent. The Draxians were all brute force, their towering forms and icy stares making it clear that they were not here to negotiate but to dominate. The Orcs, on the other hand, were smooth and polished, their every word carefully chosen, their offers seemingly generous. But Anderson knew better. The Orcs' interest in Earth was rooted in trade and technology, but their long history of making alliances only to betray them when it suited them made them dangerous in a different way. And then there were the Seraphis, who remained conspicuously absent, their intentions unknown but ever present. Their representatives, if they chose to appear, would be as enigmatic as the empire they represented. They didn't need grandiose displays of power. Their influence was built on secrecy, manipulation, and subtlety. Anderson took a deep breath as the first session began. She was seated at the head of the human delegation, flanked by her most trusted advisors, and opposite her sat Lord Varkos, the Draxian military commander. His imposing form seemed to fill the room, his cold eyes never leaving hers. Lord Varkos broke the silence. "General Anderson," he said, his voice a low growl, "we are here because Earth has made a bold move, one that has shaken the foundations of the galaxy. You wiped out an entire fleet, a fleet that was under my command. We have come to discuss the cost of that action." Anderson met his gaze without flinching. "We acted in self-defense, Varkos. The Galactic were a threat to us. You would have done the same if it were your people facing destruction." "The difference," Varkos retorted, his voice gaining strength, "is that you didn't just act in defense. You've made yourself a target. A weapon that can erase fleets with a single strike is not something the galaxy can simply ignore. The balance has shifted, and now Earth must prove it can handle that power. We did not come here to negotiate weakness." General Anderson leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. "We're not weak, Lord Varkos, but we won't be threatened either. We're not interested in starting wars. We're interested in peace, but peace on our terms." Varkos' lips curled into a thin smile. "Peace on your terms? Do you truly think you hold the power here, General? You are outmatched. The galaxy's might does not revolve around one weapon. And I'll remind you, Earth still has much to prove." Before Anderson could respond, Ambassador Sarah of the Orcs interjected, her voice calm and diplomatic. "The Draxians may speak of power, but the future lies in cooperation. The Orcs propose a different path. We have the trade routes, the alliances, the resources to offer Earth a future beyond warfare. What you are offering, General, is not just a weapon, but a vision. We want to help you shape it." Her words were calculated, her eyes never leaving Anderson as she spoke. Sarah's words had a weight to them, but Anderson could feel the underlying tension. The Orcs were playing a long game, one that could either lead to mutual prosperity or a subtle, inevitable betrayal. The conversation was becoming increasingly tense, with each faction making its own demands and offers. Yet despite the diplomatic facade, Anderson could feel the looming pressure from every side. No one was here purely for peace. They all wanted control of humanity's weapon. And then, just as tensions seemed to reach their breaking point, the doors to the chamber opened with a soft hiss, and in stepped the Seraphis. Their entrance was as silent as their empire. The black-clad figures moving without a sound, their faces obscured by their dark, featureless helmets. The room went still as they took their seats in the shadows, their presence a stark contrast to the bluster of the other delegations. A hush fell over the assembly. The Seraphis hadn't spoken yet, but their mere arrival shifted the atmosphere. They didn't need to make grand speeches. The silence spoke volumes. General Anderson exchanged a brief, knowing glance with her aides. The Seraphis were here, and whatever had been said before was now irrelevant. The galaxy's true power players had gathered, and the stakes were higher than ever. The summit was no longer just about diplomacy. It had become a battlefield, with Earth caught in the middle. Every move, every word, could tip the balance in favor of one faction, or destroy them all. The Seraphis' arrival changed the dynamic in the room. Their silent presence seemed to weigh on everyone, casting an almost tangible shadow over the summit. As their representatives took their seats, the other delegations, Draxians, Oravari, and even Earth, were momentarily thrown off balance. The Seraphis had not made a single move or uttered a word, yet their reputation for manipulation and subterfuge was enough to make everyone uneasy. Lord Varkos of the Draxians was the first to break the silence. "The Seraphis," he said, his voice dripping with disdain, "always watching from the shadows, never revealing their true intentions. What is it you want, Seraphis?" Another quiet manipulation of the galaxy's balance. From the shadows, one of the Seraphis representatives stepped forward. Their voice soft, but it cut through the tension like a knife. "We have nothing to prove, Draxian. Unlike you, we do not need to announce our power. We understand power." The figure's words were barely audible, but their meaning was clear. The Seraphis did not need to flaunt their might. They were subtle, hidden in plain sight, their power being the ability to control from behind a curtain. General Anderson listened, carefully assessing the room, her mind racing. The summit had devolved into a contest of egos and veiled threats. The Draxians and Oravari were more transparent in their demands, but the Seraphis were the true unknown. She had no idea what their ultimate goals were, but she could feel their eyes on her, studying, waiting. Sarah, the Oravari ambassador, quickly seized the opportunity to regain some semblance of control over the conversation. "We all have stakes in the future of Earth, and in this weapon," she said, emphasizing the word. "The balance of the galaxy has shifted, yes, but we must ensure it does not tip into chaos. We offer peace, prosperity, trade." "Peace," Varkos snorted. "You speak of peace, but you only want a slice of Earth's new power. The Oravari have never cared for peace unless it serves your bottom line. Don't pretend this is about anything else." Sarah's eyes flashed, but she held her composure. "At least we have a vision for the future. Your vision, Draxian, is about domination and subjugation. I suggest you consider carefully whether that is a path you wish to pursue. If you push Earth too far, we may all be facing more than just a shift in power." The exchange was tense, and Anderson could feel the weight of every word, every glance. She had not come here to choose sides. At least not yet. Earth was far from prepared for war with any of these powers, but there was no denying that they had the upper hand with Project Apophis. What they lacked in numbers, they now made up for in sheer destructive potential. Turning to the Seraphis, Anderson asked, her voice firm but not confrontational, "What do you want, then? If you have no interest in power plays or trade agreements, why are you here?" There was a long pause. The Seraphis representative, still concealed behind their helmet, seemed to consider the question before responding. "We do not desire your weapon, General Anderson. What we seek is your understanding. Your rise to power has drawn the attention of forces older and more dangerous than any here. We are here to warn you." The room grew still. The Seraphis warning wasn't directed at the Draxians or the Auravari. It was aimed directly at Earth, a chill running through Anderson's spine as the weight of the word sank in. The galaxy has seen empires rise and fall, but there are entities in the universe far older than even the Draxians. Entities that do not care for power struggles. Earth's weapon has attracted their attention. They will not be kind. We offer our protection, if you will listen to us." The room fell into stunned silence. The mention of these ancient entities felt like a chilling whisper from the void itself. Anderson could sense the uncertainty in the eyes of the other delegates, but it was clear none of them knew what the Seraphis were referring to. The Draxians, who prided themselves on their military might, shifted uneasily, while the Auravari exchanged brief glances. Even the Seraphis' offer of protection was enigmatic, leaving more questions than answers. Anderson swallowed hard. If the Seraphis were right, if these ancient entities were indeed real, then humanity's power might not be enough to protect itself. The galaxy was vast, and there were dangers beyond what anyone could fathom. Earth had no choice but to listen. And yet, the thought of trusting the Seraphis felt like a gamble. She turned back to her team, seeking their counsel, but before she could speak, Lord Varkos interrupted. "Enough talk of shadows and phantoms. You cannot seriously expect Earth to trust the Seraphis. We offer real power. We offer a chance to stand with us, to join a legacy of strength that has lasted millennia." "Your legacy is one of destruction," Anderson replied coldly. "We've had enough of that. We came here to ensure that Earth has a choice. We do not have to align ourselves with any of you to survive." There was a moment of quiet tension before the Seraphis representative spoke again, their tone as cold and detached as before. "Survival is an illusion. You will soon see that you are not the only ones who can wield power. The true test has only just begun." As the room erupted into murmurs, Anderson felt the weight of the decisions ahead pressing down on her. The galaxy had already begun to shift in ways she could not predict. The Seraphis warning was clear. Earth's rise was not the final turning point, but merely the beginning of a much larger, more dangerous game, and the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined.